Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. It is no secret that this Michigan program is really gaining some momentum on the recruiting trail. And not only does Michigan have just a massive official visit weekend going down in Ann Arbor this weekend, you take a look at Wednesday, June 19th, three very intriguing names that are midweek visitors for this Michigan program. Want to get into these three names? The original plan was to talk about these guys as we broke down the official visit weekend on Friday afternoon. Now, we're still going to break down the official visit weekend. We got a lot of names to talk about on Friday afternoon, but diving into the film on these three cats, I said we got to break these guys down separately, give kind of a separate episode for these three players. I think three extremely intriguing names for this Michigan program in the 2025 class. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Michigan fans. I can't thank you guys enough for all the support y'all have shown the fellas during the middle of June. We've talked a lot of Michigan recruiting over the last couple of days and weeks, and the amount of support has been amazing. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Many of you guys know I'm a massive Michigan fan, and we got a Michigan community building, and I appreciate you guys more than you know, and we got a lot to talk about over the next couple of weeks as well. And without further ado, let's get into what I think is my favorite visitor today in Ann Arbor, and that is four-star running back Donovan Johnson from IMG Academy. This is a very intriguing recruiting story where, Michigan wasn't even in his top five. Michigan was kind of on the outside looking in on this recruitment, and then Tony Alford takes the job in Ann Arbor, a guy that was recruiting Donovan Johnson to Ohio State. And now all of a sudden, Michigan sounds like they are in the thick of it for IMG Academy running back Donovan Johnson. And you dive into the film with Donovan Johnson, kind of an interesting story. Missed his whole junior year with a knee injury. You go back to the sophomore year film, I would ask a lot of y'all to find a more physically imposing running back as a sophomore in high school than Donovan Johnson. And you look at this kid and say he's put together 6 foot, 205 pounds. He has an extremely thick lower half, and his ability to deal with contact is exceptional. And I think this kid just fits exactly how Michigan wants to run the football, right? We're going to have a very good offensive line. It is no secret. We're going to run the football a lot. And you look at Donovan Johnson in terms of keeping this Michigan offense on schedule, being kind of that physically imposing running back that if you're an opposing Big Ten team, you don't want to tackle this kid 25 plus times a game. I think Michigan is going after Donovan Johnson because he fits exactly what Michigan wants to do. And that's a conversation that we have all the time, right? Michigan is very particular in terms of the kids that they go after. You got to make sure they fit what Michigan wants to do on both sides of the football. And I look at Donovan Johnson and say, again, this kid was born to be a Michigan running back, attacks the line of scrimmage, deals with contact exceptionally well, and just runs with a different level of physicality than you see a lot of running backs do in the 2025 class. Massive fan of Donovan Johnson. Very interested to see and hear the buzz that comes out of this visit to Ann Arbor. The next one I want to talk about is his teammate down at IMG, and a guy that is kind of familiar to some Michigan fans who follow the recruiting trail, and that's Alex Graham, right? He's from Cass Tech up in Michigan, so he's a hometown guy. And you look at Alex Graham and say he's been on Michigan's campus. I think this is going to be his 11th visit to Michigan. I mean, he's a guy that's been on campus a lot, very familiar with Michigan, with its coaching staff. And he commits to Coach Prime in the Colorado Buffaloes in the spring after kind of being considered a pretty heavy Michigan lean. I think there's a very good chance that he signs his paperwork to come to Michigan come December. And you take a look at Colorado, they have had a lot of decommitments and flip commitments during Coach Prime's time. And you look at Michigan and say, there was no way that Sherrone Moore in this coaching staff were going to give up on a guy like Alex Graham. You take a look at Alex Graham as a player, there is three things that I normally look for in defensive backs, jumping from the high school to collegiate level. Track times, long speed. Can you run with wide receivers vertically down the field? Alex Graham, with a background in track, certainly checks that box. Do you have the frame to deal with some of those bigger physical wide receivers? You look at Alex Graham, 6'1", 185 pounds, certainly has the frame. And then you take a look at the ball skills. Alex Graham's ball skills are absolutely phenomenal. He played both ways at Cass Tech before going to IMG Academy. This was a kid that missed 7 games his sophomore year due to injury. He still finished his sophomore season with 5 interceptions. And that shows up on the film. When that football is in the air, Alex Graham is oftentimes coming down with it. And so when you have a defensive back, because I think he could play safety or cornerback, that, I mean, has the big frame that you're looking for, has the long speed that you're looking for, and the ball skills, at least in my mind, that's kind of the trifecta. And I think Alex Graham is a massive target for Michigan. And quite frankly, I think Michigan has a very good shot at ending up with Alex Graham in this 2025 class. And the last player I want to talk about, and I mean, arguably another one of those really intriguing names, is Josiah Abdullah, a guy that I'm pretty familiar with. Broke down his commitment when he committed to Florida earlier in the spring. He decommits from Florida. He's taken a visit to Michigan Wednesday afternoon. You look at Josiah Abdullah, and it kind of goes along with what we've been talking about as Michigan fans on the recruiting trail, and that is, can we just get more playmakers onto this Michigan offense, particularly in the wide receiver room? And you dive into the film of Josiah Abdullah and say, all right, he was really productive during his high school career so far, over 1,500 yards and 20 touchdowns during his last 2 years at the high school level. But I think more importantly, this kid with the football in his hands is kind of next level. I mean, there is a ton of juice to this kid in terms of making people miss, dealing with contact. He's one of those guys that, I mean, know who is another one who goes 5'10", 175 out of high school, Samaj Morgan. Kind of reminds me of Samaj Morgan, where, hey, we're just going to get you the football any way you can, and we're just going to let you do the rest. And then you look at Josiah Abdullah as a route runner and say, all right, he has an 11-second 100-meter dash. I mean, he can cook vertically down the field. But what I think makes Josiah Abdullah a little bit interesting, at least in my eyes, or a little bit more interesting, I should say, is the movement skills, the ability to create separation. That's kind of what stands out to me with Josiah Abdullah. Not only is he fast in a straight line, that is proven on the track and field times. You see that on the film, his ability to create separation and then create after the catch. These are the type of players that, in my mind, Michigan is looking for from the high school ranks. I would be fired up to see if Michigan can get some buzz around Josiah Abdullah too, because this kid, he's just a playmaker at the high school level. And that type of stuff, in my mind, translates to the collegiate level. Those are the three names that I think Michigan certainly has good shots at all three of them. I think 3 very intriguing names, and we'll kind of get some idea of where Michigan stands after the visits that go down Wednesday afternoon. That'll do it for the boys. Friday afternoon, we're breaking down Michigan and their massive official visit weekend we have coming up. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.